with his fantastic bombshell lines during matches, bringing every moment on the pitch to life. Peter Drury has been in the commentating business for so many years and has always had a fascination with words. He used his technique to his advantage, and now his name is known throughout the world. The football lover speaks to K24 Live via Skype tonight about what the situation is like in the UK with the pandemic and how he's coping with the lack of football. So let's just quickly dive into that amazing interview. I know all the football fanatics have been waiting actually for this specific interview. Peter, once again, welcome to the program. Quite a pleasure to host you. We are so used to hearing your voice on telly, but for 6 weeks now, we have had to sit without football. What is your experience during this COVID-19, that is pandemic, and how strongly do you miss football, Peter?
Well, Sean, it's a very perplexing time for all of us, isn't it? The world is in a strange place. Certainly the United Kingdom is in a very strange place. And in a sense, you have to say that the absence of football is the least of our problems. But as you say, we love our sport. I know you do in your country, and we certainly do here. And not having it is a big, big miss. It's a major passion of mine. It's what makes me tick. And although I'm enjoying, I suppose, gentler times, a less busy lifestyle right now, I will certainly be very keen for it to return as soon as possible. I can't wait to see somebody kick a football again.
And football, as you're speaking there, itself is actually watched widely across the world, and commentating on this beautiful game, you have managed to actually stand out on the commentating scene. You're among the few commentators people actually look forward to when the matches are ongoing. When did it occur to you that you can actually be a sports commentator, and where did this passion come from?
Well, the reality of it came relatively late in life, I suppose. I don't think I'm alone in having been a small boy who dreamed of doing it once upon a time. When I was 6, 7, 8 years old, it was very quickly clear that I wasn't going to be good enough at playing the game to make a living out of it. So I suppose the next best thing would be to talk about it. And it was really only in my early 20s that I started to pursue it in any sort of a serious way. And I got a break with local radio, with the BBC here in the UK, and went from there. I had a series of lucky breaks. I've been so fortunate through my career to be in the right place at the right time. And here I am still just about getting away with it.
How much preparation goes into a match actually? What do you do to just get mentally prepared, you know, for those poetic lines that you deliver day in, day out for your viewers?
Well, in terms of preparation, the nuts and bolts preparation takes on average about 1 day per match. So that is all the statistical preparation, the facts, the history, the recent meeting, just the whole context of the match. That is the hard work of the week that goes into the final display that is the weekend. In terms of the words that actually come out of my head in those moments, I suppose, those really come from instinct. Once the game kicks off, you can't write what is going to happen. You simply have to react to what does happen. So when the team is coming out of the tunnel and they're walking out, okay, I know that's going to happen, and so I can have something prepared for that. But once the game kicks off, you just have to go with the flow and trust in your instinct.
So just to be clear and to answer the question that we've received from so many Kenyan viewers is that your lines are actually not scripted but spontaneous.
Once the game is underway, nothing is scripted, no. As I say, the pre-match, you know, up until kickoff, to me, if I align myself with, say, a player, preparing for that, having some words for that, is like a player practicing penalties or free kicks. You know what's going to happen. Everything is set. You would be silly not to be ready for that. That would be borderline unprofessional. But equally, there is a real danger in trying to script a moment, because the chances are that the moment you script won't absolutely dovetail with what really occurs, and you can end up looking silly.
And I have to also ask you this. Roma have risen from their ruins. Manolas, the Greek god in Rome, the unthinkable unfolds before our eyes. This was not meant to happen. This could not happen. This is happening. This was your commentary after Manolas scored that, third goal for AS Roma. And I know everyone went crazy on social media. It was literally wildfire after this words. And it was quite a moment that people have never forgotten. What was going on through your mind when you said these specific words?
Well, Sean, that was a strange night. It was a strange night because actually I was very relaxed about that match because there was no chance of Roma coming back. Actually, on the same evening, Liverpool were playing Manchester City. That was the much bigger game. But as it transpired, Liverpool against Manchester City sorted itself out quite quickly. And I think a lot of people who were watching that had heard that Roma had scored a couple of goals and things were getting exciting in that game. I had got into it in a very relaxed style because I thought it would have a relatively small audience. The outcome looked preordained. And it wasn't until Roma scored their penultimate goal that it suddenly occurred to me that, wow, if they happen to score again, we're into something a bit special here. And so mentally, it was at that stage that I changed gear. When the ball went in from the Manolas header, that line that you just read, Roma have risen from their ruins, was just something I used in the moment to cover a couple of seconds because I wasn't sure who scored the goal. And I waited for the close-up because it was an unlikely scorer. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, it was Manolas. And what did I know about him? Well, I knew he was Greek. And so all that stuff about Greeks and Romans just came sort of spilling out.
Lovely, lovely, Peter. And you've also commentated alongside a number of people, but it's your partnership with Jim Begling that has been lauded the most. Quite a positive partnership. And we've also seen how you've talked about not being on social media, that is Twitter, but Jim always steps in to actually give people updates on how you're doing here and there. How's the chemistry like between you and him, and how did you two develop this relationship?
Well, we're like an old married couple now, really. We finish each other's sentences. We've been together for so long, and we have a lovely familiarity. He's a friend of mine. I also have a lot of professional respect for him. He had a more than credible footballing career playing for Liverpool in the 1980s. It would have been a much bigger career, but sadly it was brought to a halt by a very nasty injury. Nevertheless, he was a title winner with Liverpool, and to his great credit, having lost his football career in his mid-20s, he set about becoming the best broadcaster he could become. And he is one of those who turns up to a game properly prepared with his thoughts organized and ready to deliver. He doesn't waste a word. He doesn't waffle. He has something useful to say within the articulation of any football match. And it's a joy and a privilege to work alongside him.
It sounds quite exciting to actually do football commentary. But is there a downside to commentary?
Well, like every game, like every job in the world, yours, mine, anybody watching, there are good days at work and there are bad days at work. Sean, I'm sure there are times when, although you love your job, you go home and think, I wasn't on top of it today. I wasn't good. I feel slightly upset at my own performance. If I get a bit of criticism, I think, well, maybe that's justified. All of that sort of thing. And those of us who do our jobs, as you do and I do, in the public eye, sometimes know we have to be subject to criticism or at least opinion. And that can be a difficult thing to take on board, the bits that go around the outside of it. But those minor negatives don't come anywhere near to deleting the extraordinary positives, the privilege of watching sport for a living. And that is essentially what it is. I'm a very, very lucky boy.
Yes, and you've also commentated at the World Cup, Euro, Champions League, English Premier League and Cup games. Do you have any favorite team, player or match that you've commentated while you're commentating? Like, can you give us your favorites?
Well, my favorite team is England. Am I allowed to say that? so my fantasy would be England winning the World Cup. But I have, as you say, been fortunate enough to see all of the great players over the last 20 years or so. Of course, there's an ever-raging debate about whether Messi is the greatest or Ronaldo is the greatest, and everybody's entitled to their opinions on that. Before then, Luis Figo, the great Portuguese. My favourite through the early years of the century and the last years of the 20th century was the great French player Zinedine Zidane. He was a beautifully balletic footballer and just gorgeous to see. But you know, they all bring something. And what is football? It really is an ongoing narrative. It's a story. And all of these players, whether the greatest or the least, are part of the story. They are characters in a drama. And my love is getting caught up in that drama.
And now before we go to what the fans are just saying, oh my goodness, we've received thousands and thousands of messages on Twitter. You've been our top trend in the country. So just before we go to that, are there calls to restart the English Premier League in June? What are your thoughts about this?
Well, from a personal perspective, I really hope we can finish the Premier League in June. We always have to preface this discussion with these words: it can't happen until it's safe to happen. And so football is not boss here. It's a big deal, football, in this country and around the world, but it's not as important as the health of human beings and the health of the human race. So we are in the hands of science. That has to help us sort out this horrible pandemic. If that can be done, then I really hope that the Premier League and all the leagues around Europe and the world can find a way of finalising their competition for the integrity of that competition. We need to be able to crown our champions if we can. We need to be able to establish who are relegated, who are promoted into next year's Premier League, who qualifies for the Champions League. There are big, big clubs, and there is big, big money around all this. And there is also just the sport itself, and we are thirsting for the sport itself.
Yes, and now, oh my goodness, there are so many lines that you have done, and the fans are actually just sending them in, and it's so funny. Some of them are funny, and some of them, just tell us what was going through your mind when you're saying this. So you said you would look at this Messi guy and you'll be asking yourself, is this the same football which troubled Rashford and Lingard?
Well, who knows what I was thinking of? You see, this is the trouble. There is no rationale. There is no plan. And so the words come rolling out of my mouth, and sometimes they make sense, and perhaps very often they don't make sense. But yeah, I mean, you know, when you're talking about Messi, one of the challenges is actually to find a suitable vocabulary for him, because it's all been said. And one of the reasons I sometimes use words that perhaps others don't is because A, I love words, and B, I get bored of hearing myself saying the same thing over and over again. There are only so many ways you can express certain things in a football match. So it's always my challenge to myself to try and find a new way of saying the same thing.
Yes. And now, just a quick one. When it comes to Kenya, the biggest rivalry has to be between Manchester United and Arsenal. But I understand in the UK it's more of Manchester United and Liverpool. And you said this, and I remember Manchester United fans were actually furious. But it was also funny at the same time for Arsenal fans. But you said, you look at Marcus Rashford, he has the speed and the shooting style of Cristiano Ronaldo, but the brains of Christian Benteke. I can't even say it. I can't say it.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Did I? Well, I can't even remember saying these things. I can't remember these things. I hope I offended nobody. Because actually, on a serious note, I understand we're laughing. I'm not taking you too seriously. Don't worry. But actually, one of the things I try to be aware of when talking about footballers is that they are human beings, and I really don't want to say anything that would be insulting to them. So I hope the context of those words wasn't too insulting to anybody.
Okay, the good thing it's like football banter. But yes, I know you have, as I said earlier, you have so many fans in Kenya. Will you ever visit Kenya one day?
I'd love to visit Kenya. I'd love to visit Kenya. You know, the warmth you offer me and you offer our football is beautiful. And it would be lovely to have that opportunity to reciprocate in some way. Because I don't go on social media, I think some people feel as though I'm trying to build a barrier. I think I've explained myself before on this, so I won't do it again. But I want you to know, and I want the people who are watching now to know that I honestly do feel the warmth, and it means the world to me. And I would love the opportunity to come and visit Kenya, which I'm told is a really beautiful, beautiful land.
Yes, and also just finishing up with the fans' questions, if you are given a Kenyan Premier League game, that is our local league, would you be excited to commentate? We had that question from Kwanya Omenda.
Of course I would. As I say about the Premier League, I could say about any league. It's about a narrative. It's about excitement. It's about the jeopardy of a game. It's about what it means if this team wins or this team loses, where the supporters are engaged in it, where it really matters to people. And the teams in your Premier League will have their own relationships, each with each other, the same fan banter, the same rivalries. And I would be fascinated to learn about those dynamics.
Yes, and finally, we have here locally, we have the likes of Abdinur Eden, we have Fred Arocho, we have Herbert Mochiro. What is your advice to upcoming commentators?
To be authentic. That's the really important thing. To be yourself. Don't pretend to be someone else. Don't try to mimic anybody else. Don't see a style and think I'll do it that way. Just be who you are. Have the humility to listen and learn from other people, but have the confidence in yourself to execute your work in the best way you can. And always remember this: nobody ever turns on for the commentator. They turn on for the football match. It's not your match, it's everybody else's match, and it's just your job to articulate it.
Thank you so much, Peter Drury. We have to end it on that note. Quite exciting. We are humbled at K24 to actually host you. Thank you so much, and I know so many Kenyans were watching that. Have a lovely evening. Thank you so much for actually agreeing to our request. Have a lovely evening.
It's been terrific, Sean. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That was Peter Drury, the biggest interview I feel like this month we had promised you. We have delivered here at K24 Sport, and definitely there's a whole big team that has actually done this. So thank you so much for everyone who just tuned into that interview. Karen Karimi on the other side. Karen?
Of course, I'm so excited.
Yes, come and say hi.
Hold on. Hold on. This is my moment of fame. Hi, Peter.
Hi, how are you?
My name's Karen.
Hello, Karen, how are you?
I'm such a big, huge fan of yours.
Well, bless you. I need as many friends as I can get.
Yes, thank you so much for that interview.
Thank
you, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. That was lovely.
Thank you, and thank you so much for watching. Of course, I'll be back with more stories after this short break.